listening to In-Fisherman Storyline, North America's top voice in multi-species freshwater angling. Here is your host, Thomas Allen.
Hey folks, Thomas Allen here with In-Fisherman, and before we get started today, I wanted to pass along some exciting news as we welcome LL Bean as presenting sponsor of In-Fisherman Storyline podcast. LL Bean is an iconic brand known for its quality outdoor gear and a deeply rooted passion for everything outside. Not to mention they make a pretty mean plaid flannel shirt. Check this thing out. Awesome. This partnership will bring more great stories, expert tips, and outdoor inspiration to anglers everywhere. LL Bean, we are glad to have you a part of this. So welcome to the palatial LL Bean Studios nestled atop the twin In-Fisherman Towers overlooking beautiful downtown Brainerd, Minnesota. Stay right there. A new episode of In-Fisherman Storyline presented by LL Bean is coming right up. Man, that's got a nice ring to it. So we're gonna dig into another after hours conversation here. So thanks for being a part of In-Fisherman Storyline. I've got my good friend sitting across from me, Mr. Mark Kortz, who is a seasoned, as we've just found out, a seasoned veteran walleye pro, 27 years.
Yeah, it's incredible, Thomas. And it really, as much as I say it's been a long time, and it started in this building, right?
Yeah, PWT
days. In-Fisherman was a huge part of the upper Midwest fishing, and it's truly kind of cool to come back into studio and be back in the building and doing this podcast tonight.
Well, thanks for being here. We're going to dig into a little bit of your history and especially what's made you 50 years old. Good Lord.
I know.
Can you believe that?
No, I feel it every morning.
Speaking of old guys, representing the younger generation, I brought in my protege, the spawn of my loins, my son, Tommy Allen V, young man.
That's me.
That's you. You're going to contribute. I would say thank you for being here, but I'm pretty sure I made you be here. So thank you, Thomas. We're going to talk about all things in the media world, the fishing world, and where those two collide. And so Mark, you and I, 27 years. I'm trying to think. It's been 15 that we've known each other.
For sure.
In fact, the first tournament I covered, I'll never forget this, and I don't let this go to your head, but I was out of place. I wasn't sure what I was doing. I thought I was going to make a living in the hunting world, was hanging drywall and putting on shingles to kind of make the bills work and do all that, and I got an opportunity to go cover the FLW Walleye Tour back in the day, and it was the very first event I was at. I think you did an interview with me. And one of the few guys that I recall remembered my name, and you're good with people, but that was one of those moments where I thought, I kind of like this guy. We're of similar generational age. I mean, you're not quite old enough to be my daddy, but you are the first one to 50 between the two of us. So there is some age and experience there, but that was something that was important to me, but that period was really kind of the end of the height of the walleye tournament world, and it was receding at that point anyways.
Yeah, Thomas, it really has. And it's unfortunate, but if we look back in walleye tournament fishing history, or just tournament fishing history, right, let's go back to the beginnings, and what it was about is print media and talking to writers, and there wasn't the social media aspect. Knowing your sponsors, the sponsors were at tournaments, so it was handshakes and
kissing babies.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that social media has changed. But it's some of it's for the good and some's for the bad, right? Our industry has changed so much. I look back at history, and this is something from talking with Tommy. This is something that's really changed. It used to be 80% fishing and 20% marketing, right? I mean, everything revolved around your fishing skills back then. And it wasn't the forward-facing technology. It was literally breaking down. We didn't have the maps that we have today.
Right.
I mean, we had Lowrance X7s, black and whites.
Beeped every time you went over a fish.
Flashers. Bottom line was around. But, I mean, so the industry's definitely changed, and you've had to keep up with what's happening, and social media is definitely one of them. But the sad thing is that we've lost the skills of speaking with outdoor riders and sponsors and things like that. Like that aspect of it has really changed, and that's a sad thing to say. I look at this generation now, and nothing against Tommy. Tommy's totally different because he's been brought up differently. But
I beat him regularly.
Exactly. But what's changed is that this younger generation can't have a conversation face to face with somebody. They can text and they can do a lot of things, but for them to have a conversation, look at somebody in the eyes and have that conversation is a struggle.
Well, it's important to be able to look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, introduce yourself, engage in a conversation. And I think social media, while it's become a critical part to your career, it's important to In-Fisherman, it's important how that generation communicates. It took that personal connection out, right? You didn't have to talk to somebody. And really, I feel like the rise of social media was such a sharp line up that I think it's going to fall in a similar fashion. And it's just a theory, but I'm already seeing companies that don't necessarily look at somebody who has a potload of followers or a potload of posts. It's how within those posts are they able to engage. And we have to do it. We have to embrace. You and I both dislike it. We both do it, but it's something that I think this generation has the good ones have perfected the balance, right? If you're able to stand in front of people and give a seminar, if you're able to communicate with an older generation, and I'll give Tommy credit here. There's a lot of times he doesn't have a problem walking up to a guy that's our age or a guy that's even to our parents' age and have a conversation, and they don't leave feeling slimy like they just talked with a wet behind the ears kid. So I hope that in his future there's a value in the balance that he's working towards. And one of the things, let's start off with the term pro staff, and I'm going to talk a little bit about something that Tommy's got going on here, but I want you to give him some advice. But on the flip side, anybody out there, because the word pro staff for a long time was a badge of honor, was it not? You're like, man, this is a person that's a professional angler, golfer, whatever the case may be. You are somebody that has a value of talent and education and something that you can contribute. And so that was a really big deal. But as we went on, company ABC offers a 10% discount to be on their pro staff. And it really, in my mind, devalued that entire term.
100%. You were spot on that exact statement. But, here's the difference. I've traveled to sports shows for 27 years. And, as sports shows have decreased in, I'd say, attendance, just locations. You get to some and there's great attendance. I was in Minneapolis here a week ago and Fargo that same week. And I'd say the attendance was definitely down, but the buyers are there. But that's where you seen back in the day, that's where you got your badge. I mean, working with the company, speaking to the consumers.
To a packed room of hungry anglers that want to learn from you.
Absolutely, because there wasn't, the Google search where I can just Google something and say, oh, all I have to do is this. How do I run my electronics, or how do I figure out my mapping, or, what do I look for in the spring, fall, summer? Those types of situations. And so that's changed. But what I can say to these younger anglers coming up is time on the water is a huge deal.
We're going to change the name of this podcast to Time on the Water.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't care who you talk to, time on the water.
Nothing beats that.
No, you're right, Tommy. But there's the other thing is don't be afraid to walk up to somebody on these Thursday nighters, Wednesday nighters, and ask them what they're doing. And for the most part, a lot of this older generation's happy to help young anglers learn how to do it right. Right. And then the next thing is talk to sponsors. The Tim Prices of the world. I can go on and on with, the Brad Rutherfords, all those people. What can I do for you? Not what can you do for me? It's what can I do for you?
Right.
What do you need me to do?
Well, and that's been the thing so long is like, well, I'm going to fish the high school team this year. Anybody want to be my sponsor? I've seen that on social media, and it's disgusting. Now, I will say the bright spot to all this is I feel like that's changing right now. We're at the cusp of people realizing social media is important, but there are different values at different levels. And Tommy this year, and this is something that his mother and I talked at length about, and there's a friend of ours, his name is Eric Ali. He's been on this podcast. He's a good friend of mine, works at Eagle Claw. He's like, I really like the pictures and videos that your son posts. And I'm like, oh yeah, he does a good job. He's got a good teacher. You know, he's taught him how to do these things. And he's like, what would you think if we put him on regional pro staff? And I'm like, you know what? Right away, I was like, I don't know that that's a good idea. But on the flip side, I know that what Tommy would spend time producing is something that he would value at that brand. So we agreed to it, and I've told you over and over again, whether it's turkeys, whether it's deer, whether it's the big fish we catch or the small fish we catch, we don't brag, right? Humility is first, and so we're not telling this to like pat ourselves on the back. It's that you have an opportunity to do something cool. It's going to require work. We're going to be on the water in the next 4 or 5 days a bunch, paying back what we owe to make this stuff. So when we talked about this, you were nervous, weren't you?
Yeah.
Because why?
It's a big responsibility.
But see, that's the first thing out of his mouth, Mark, and that's what I told him, is that you owe if you get involved with this. And you've done nothing but work on that. Eric's been happy. You got a long ways to go. You got a big summer ahead of you, but that's the thing I want people to understand is if you're going to put that little bitty pro staff word behind your name, it ain't what you get. It's what you can do.
Yeah, and what people don't understand is it's not, our season up here is shortened, right? We got ice. And as much as I grew up ice fishing, I kind of despise it now. Like, it's just no fun for me. I don't know if it's the cold, what it is, but I'd much rather be down south where it's warm and I can make a long cast instead of a short drop. But so with that short season being said, there's other aspects of the business, right? There's working on contracts for the following year. There's doing social media posts. There's attending sport shows. There's setting up seminars. There's going to product development. I mean, there's so many other aspects that this younger generation doesn't, all they think is it's fun. You get to go out fishing. And the general public thinks the same way, right?
Yeah.
It's all about just
must
going,
be nice.
Oh, it must be nice.
Yeah,
you get to sit out in a boat and go fishing and, you get all this cool gear. Well, they don't understand the whole business aspect of it behind it. And that's the thing. So to this younger generation, create relationships. And like you said, when you get a relationship, don't ever forget that because tomorrow that guy might not be at that company.
But he might be at another company.
He might be.
And
at
we've
another...
learned this extensively. It's a small industry, and I've been in 20 years now, and I've had to burn one or two bridges, and it may have been amicable, it may have been me being younger, but you really don't. Like, you want to make sure that your relationships are intact. Always leave on good terms. Always make sure you're over delivering, and that's the other thing we'll talk about is if you're going to make a commitment to a company, look at what their expectations are, have them laid out, and find a way to go beyond that. And
then the next thing, be loyal.
Loyalty is right on.
I mean, honestly, loyalty goes a long ways. I've been with most of my companies a long time, and the ones that I've left were for, I wouldn't say business reasons, I'd say corporate change.
Yeah.
And when there was corporate change, I left certain companies, but I always left on good terms.
I always heard your sponsors from them. I've heard that they keep you on out of charity.
They must. I don't know. The way I fished last year, probably. But no, honestly, it's the loyalty goes a long ways and never ending those relationships. I mean, just call them up and say hi. If they're not with the company you're with, you're not cheating on the company you're with. It's just keeping that relationship open because you never know when that person's going to be at the company you're with or at a different company or where you might need something. I mean, honestly, or how you can help them. Maybe they need a job and something opens up in another company you're working with. I mean, there's a lot of those relationships that I've built over the years that have carried on throughout my career. I mean, and to this day, I still pretty much stay in contact with everybody that's ever been a sponsor. I left on good terms.
We've got a lot of family in this industry. A lot of
100%.
friends are just really close, and not everybody gets along, but you really have this it's a tight-knit organization. It's sometimes hard to crack into, and I think that I want Tommy to talk a little bit about this because one of my theories one of the things I want him to understand, and I said the same to Eric, it's like, well, I don't want him to get this because of our relationship. I want you to see something valuable in his talent. And if that's something I can help him with, then that's my obligation. But how early do you have a camera in your face?
There's your answer. Pretty early. Probably when shot my first turkey.
Yeah.
I would say
With
yeah.
Ross Grothy.
Yeah.
It was your first turkey.
Yeah, it was like 5 or 6,
Mm-hmm.
probably 5, but yeah.
Now you were 6 because Taylor was 5, and she was not happy that you shot one, so she went out the next year and shot one at 5. So you were 6. The next year she was 5.
You got to remember the hunts where we didn't get anything though.
Well, we don't forget those, but you remember that we were like, okay, let's do a take. That didn't work. Let's try it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an awkward thing to learn if you've never done it. So I think if there was a benefit that you picked up along the way, it's that you've been kind of having a camera in your face, just like you do now. Are you uncomfortable with the camera in your face?
No, not at all.
So tell me the story about that video you made with Jed.
That video I made with Jed. So it was cold. It was pretty windy. So I wanted to show people what it was like how to work Mega Live 2
With the new Explorer unit.
With the new Explorer unit with the Sniper Marine stick as well. So he and I just did a quick little demonstration on how it works.
And the first one came back, right?
Yeah. What do you mean the first one?
You sent me 2. That's what I'm telling you. So
yes.
If you're with a buddy that doesn't do this kind of stuff, it's kind of like, oh man, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't do this, but you guys didn't skip a beat.
I mean, it is pretty hard to, especially if you have like an iPhone, if you're going to film with that, it's pretty hard to like stand it up somewhere if you're going to film something like that. But
you guys did the second take, but the big point was there. We didn't know this when we filmed it, but you demonstrated a feature on that unit.
Yeah.
Remember what that was?
Yeah, the switching the lengths.
The zoom.
Yeah, the zoom. Sorry.
Zoom in, zoom out. Yep.
Yeah.
And that just so happened to be what everybody was asking on the social platforms. If the Explorer unit had that, because normally in the past you had to go into settings,
Correct,
scroll down, which had its place, but they
now that Explorer has a touchscreen, it's so simple to do now.
So you inevitably answer questions, and I think that a lot of times when you're creating this kind of content, it's not necessarily about what everybody's asking. It's how can I make a simple explanation in one video as opposed to trying to go through the entire long list of features and whatever. So you made a short video, and I think for his first time across my personal page, your page, and In-Fisherman's pages, because it was a good value for one of our sponsors, almost 20,000 views.
That's awesome.
But not something he pats himself on the back for. It was just something about this timing is right. We'd recognize the timing. And you did.
Yeah.
So you've had that out with your buddies. What do you think of it so far?
I absolutely love it. I love the way that it like shows fish. I love the way how simple it is to work.
So he did something else, and I want you to explain this. You have the down mode, turn the transducer all the way down, and you have the down mode that provides a pretty good view, and I'd say that's comparable to any other brand. I like it, but you run it a different way.
Yeah, so when I'm going to set up the fish house, I usually I can't talk.
Yeah, there's just a microphone in your face.
Yeah, I know.
I thought we talked about how you're well trained.
Good on camera.
Yeah, so what I like to do, I like to keep it in forward. Instead of zooming out a bunch, I actually like to zoom in on my bait. And it's kind of like a way of down mode, but so it basically is down mode. You just have the sonar in forward mode, and
because you pull that view back, the bait is more it's
prevalent.
It's bigger.
More prevalent.
Yep.
Yeah. And you can also, like, if you want to go out and scan for fish that in the area, like, all you have to do is just click that button a few times, and then you can.
And you don't have to pull the transducer up and rotate it. So the whole point of me having you tell the story is I sent you out, like, just go, get familiar with this thing, talk about it, speak intelligently, right? And you're not doing that right now. We're going to work on that. No, but you do have time on the water with that thing to give you a little bit of confidence to talk about it. And that's the key. It's not what am I going to get if I want to fish a tournament? What am I going to get how many rods am I going to get? How do I get a boat? How do I get all this stuff? That's a flat, backwards way of approaching a relationship with somebody.
100%. And the other thing, I look at this generation, and a lot of what they watch is these YouTubers. And I'll probably get bashed for bashing on the YouTubers, but honestly, if you create content, create good content. Like you just talked about. Don't just create content for the sake of creating content
And getting views, right?
and getting views. You know, the dumb stuff, doing dumb things like that isn't. I guess that's what I struggle with the YouTubers is just create good content, and then there's a reason behind it. I get that a lot of these guys got hundreds of thousands of viewers, right, for silly content, but that is, I guess, from the older generation, that isn't what we like to see. And maybe this younger generation's different, and obviously they are because that's where their followers
They get
are.
views, and I guess
100%.
where I get a little bit of like step back, like, is when you start seeing certain organizations sponsoring these guys, because a lot of them, and we won't go into any names, but I have the same opinion as you, is they've created a social following, a YouTube channel, sneaking into golf course ponds and right, we all did that. Whatever. I mean,
sure.
there's a point where I get all that. It's just
But we were doing it not to film it. We were doing it for the enjoyment,
go fishing.
go catch fish.
Go catch fish. I think there's a big difference there, but I don't necessarily feel like, maybe there are some. And if there are some, I don't know exactly who they are, but to me, the term influencer is a cuss word. Like, I just don't like that, because are you an angler who's trying to sell product, or are you trying to influence somebody into believing you're the man, or whatever that is? And there's a bunch of garbage out there. But the problem is people watch it. And so you have a certain number. It's simple math. If you look at 130,000 viewers on a video, you can assume that there is a portion of those that will take what that person in the video says and use that as an influence to go buy product. So there's some level, and I don't like to use the term value in this discussion, but I can't think of a better one. There's some level of value in associating with an influencer. I don't know that that's going to last. I know that's not what he wants to be. That's not what I'm hoping for. I hope that we can kind of try to blaze a trail with this next generation with the old school method. And that's what my goal is.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, if we look at In-Fish, that was those Al and Ron were my influencers.
Right. That's right.
You know,
And
Al,
Doug,
Ron, Jim, Doug, that whole group was my influencers. I mean, when we got an In-Fisherman or a bass magazine in the mail, what'd we do? We sat down and read it. Like, oh, that's something that looks cool. I'm going to read about it. Right? That's what we did, or watch the videos. And that's, I guess, what's changed. And so the learning curve for these younger generations anglers has definitely changed. There's no doubt about it. We've got young anglers that are coming into the elites or coming into the professional walleye side of things. I mean, if we talk about the guy that's probably the hottest stick in walleye fishing right now, he started walleye fishing 4 years ago. I mean, Tom Wynn, like literally 4 years ago. And I listened to him at the NPA conference this year, and he literally said, I put my mind to try to learn the initial Garmin product, right? And that's what he did. And now, obviously, the whole industry's changed. We're all have forward-facing sonar. We got Mega Live 2. And so there's so many things that have forced everybody to change the way they fish. And is that good? Absolutely. I mean, it's really no different than what we were doing back then. When we finally got, really cool graphs back in the day with side imaging and then 360. And if you look at what Hummingbird's done, I mean, they're by far one of the leaders in the industry with technology and what they've come up with over time, right?
Yeah, especially the Tom Mann days. And then you remember the green box.
The green
Lowrance
boxes.
Locator.
The yellow box that Hummingbird came out with. I mean, look at where we came from. And why is that? It's because of professional angling. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is that's where a lot of the stuff gets designed that we are using today to be successful out on the water. That's what we're actually using.
Hold that magazine up. Don't spill your cup. So your camera's right there. This is the official 50th anniversary edition. It's a collector's edition of In-Fisherman magazine, and so if there was a, our 2025 is our 50th anniversary, but the March-April edition of that magazine is the official start date or matching the anniversary. So in there, we talked a lot about history, and we talked a lot about what's come back in the day that's affecting us still, or that had a moment, and if I were to ask Tommy what the word game changer is, your generation likes catchphrases. What's that mean to you?
Game changer?
Yeah.
I've never used that phrase before.
Okay. Well, what is a game changer?
Well, something that like it changes your mode.
Makes
It's
you faster.
What's that?
It makes you faster. You make better decisions.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's innovations that do that, right? But game changers, we have beat that term to a pulp in this industry. Oh, it's a game changer. Yeah, it's a rubber worm. You know, that's not a game changer.
Well, I mean, everybody thinks that shaking a minnow is something like new,
Yeah. Right.
right? We've been doing it for walleye fishing.
Walleye fishing, especially this whole forward-facing sonar thing, like the jig minnow. That's
walleye fishing 101.
Yeah.
Okay, the jig worm. I mean, that's bass fishing 101. I mean, nothing's changed in that aspect of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's changed is the way we break down water now. I mean, Lake Master maps, right? I mean, I can go to a body of water and all of a sudden, boom, I've got a map of everything.
Okay, if you had forward-facing sonar or Lake Master, which one would you want to have? If you had to pick one, mapping, and we'll just say mapping or forward-facing sonar. Tommy, go ahead, pick one.
I gotta go mapping.
Mapping.
I would pick mapping every time. And we are having this conversation today that forward-facing sonar is unfair. I mean, come on, people. Like, that was a game changer of its day.
It gave every spot on the spot away instantly.
Yeah. And spots that people had worked for. I remember the days, Mark, and you won't remember this necessarily, Tommy, but at Middle Lake, I used to line up that
triangular
with that willow tree, and I got to be about that far out to find the spot.
Yep.
Or
and all of a sudden it came up 12 foot.
Yeah.
Or 6 foot.
Right. And but now that whole part of the game is a lot faster. And I guess, the tongue-in-cheek comment I'm making here is that there's a lot of people that complain about this technology, and while it has its advantages and while it makes us more productive in certain elements, I don't know where, like in 3-4 years from now, I think we're going to kind of look back and laugh at how much of a baby a lot of people were about this.
Oh, 100%. I mean, me and you just watched a clip that I filmed this summer, and it's prime example, right? You still got to be able to catch them.
Yeah.
And we were side by side.
That's right.
Right?
That's
one angler wasn't catching them, and one angler was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still, you still have to fish. Bottom line.
There's a couple articles in that magazine Mark held up I want people to read, and flip through it and you'll find it. But there's a story about the history of the game changer versus innovation, and then there's one that I wrote in the back. It's the screen scene column about it's fishing responsibility versus technology, and there's two components to that. And I would say that we can give prime examples of fishing responsibility that go back decades of just over exploitation of fisheries. And you've seen those fisheries in good shape and in bad shape. Mille Lacs is a fine example. I think we're in a bounce back year, but let's hope that this perch boom that's going on is not exploited too bad, right? There's a point where you got to be conscientious.
Yeah, and I mean, I can look back at a lot of lakes. Let's look at Red Lake, for example, the crappie boom, right? We didn't have the technology we had today, and those crappies left that lake, right? A good majority of them. Why? Because it got overfished. And whose fault was that? The anglers, right? Shame on the anglers, but then shame on the state too. And here's what I'll say about that. The size of those crappies in that lake at that time were giant. Yeah. Did you need 15 in your bucket? Absolutely
No.
not.
That's right.
I guarantee you 3/4 of the crappies that were caught out there got thrown away in the trash because they were freezer burnt by the time they got ate.
Yep.
But was it one of the premier crappie fisheries in the country? Absolutely. Mille Lacs Lake right now. And I don't know what happened. I'm still puzzled by this. I spend a lot of time in that lake. I'm an hour from it with the house or at my house. But, there was a perch boom that's happened here in the last 5 years. And we went from that lake, if you had a camera down and an aqua view and we're looking, you didn't see a perch. And all of a sudden, we started to see this perch fry everywhere. Leech Lake, same thing, right? There's so much fry in the lake. And all of a sudden, now we've got 13, 14, 15-inch perch in the lake again. So,
How many years?
Oh, I honestly, 4 or 5 was.
Think about that for a minute. I think there's also their rate of growth in Minnesota is impressive. Whereas, a bass or a muskie, they have, I don't know what, a 5-pound bass. That's probably a 10-year-old fish anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So muskies way up there. Pike are going to be a little faster growing than muskies, I think. But do you feel like maybe a perch benefits more from like a bug type forage base Because there was a shiner crash too, right?
There was. But I don't know, like I caught a perch there probably, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, and it was a good one, like one of those 13, 14 inchers. Well, it was actually puking up smallmouth bass fry. So put that in
Through the
perspective.
ice? Or what?
Through the ice.
Through the ice.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're feeders, right?
Well, they're aggressive a little bit.
They're aggressive feeders. And I mean, all you have to do is put a jig down the hole, and whether it's a 3-inch perch or a 14-inch perch, they're aggressive for the most part. So that's interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, as long as we just take care of these fisheries, I don't think the electronics has changed that. What's changed it more than anything is social media.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to say it, we can talk about our industry as a whole. The thing that's changed fishing more than anything is social media.
Well,
it's too easy to figure out where the bites are at.
It's too easy to run your mouth about a certain piece of technology. Correct. And have an audience that believes you. And then all of a sudden you've got disciples and people are promoting your stance when I think that's 100% right. But what if somebody were to go into the Meta offices now and turn the switch off or kick the plug out of the wall, I wouldn't lose a minute's sleep. I'd be okay with that. I'd be fine because I don't care what you ate yesterday after your workout at the gym with your big muscles. I like it for the sake of if you can kind of brag with your buddies about some deer and fish. Like I'll give it the bragging board component. It's the I think the ability for people to manipulate their truth and share that gets aggravating. And I'm talking socially, fishing wise. If they're trying to pirate spots, if they're posting that they're the member of 14 different pro staffs that give you a 10% discount, and there's just a long line of just inaccuracies, or they're not necessarily lies, but they could be. In just a few days, I will be helping my in-laws put the dock in at their lake cabin, and I guarantee you I'm going to be in and out of the water a dozen times at least. Whether you're doing grunt work like that or enjoying a day fishing your favorite shoreline, stream, or river, you need gear that you can trust and keep you dry. LL Bean's waders will do just that, and not for just this year. These things are built to last. Their super seam technology eliminates all those tiny pinholes that traditionally stitched and taped seams create, which results in seams that are 50% stronger. These things are built tough, comfy enough for all-day wear, and stylish enough to make the frogs and fish jealous. Hey, you can learn more at llbean.com.
You said it best, I think, in the fact that, like, I use social media to see what your family's doing. See the fish you caught or the turkeys you killed or the deer you killed, and follow your family, right? And that's the cool aspect of social media. To get new product out there, absolutely. I think it's people are starving for information. Mm-hmm. Like you said with Tommy, he's out there, he's showing something on his sonar that's unique, it's new, it's totally, it's something original. And it's not copying somebody else's social media post, or it's not bashing somebody on social media. It's not bashing other products. And that's the other thing these young anglers got to learn is not to bash other products.
Not to bash other products, yeah, never.
I mean, I don't care if you're catching them on the products you're sponsored by. That's awesome. Promote that, right? But don't go bashing other products. And here's the other thing I'll tell you, and I learned this a long time ago. From a media guy, actually. Tim Lesmeister told me a long time ago, do not lie to me. If you're going to tell me something that you're catching fish on, make sure it's what you're catching fish on. And that's more true today than anything, because it's too easy to see that you're not, right? I mean, all you have to do is watch bass and somebody's promoting a product. Are they using that product? Nah, that wasn't the product I seen you casting.
And if you know products, like you can see a crankbait from another boat.
And I shouldn't say bass. I'm going to take that back. Live television.
Yeah.
Anything live. If you're going to promote it, it better be what you were using.
There have been a handful of these over the years, and I mean, I think it kind of turns the fan base off. Like they almost the pro anglers almost discredit themselves if they're not being fully upfront. And I think that I can give an example of somebody that's always done it right, and everybody knows who he is. Kevin Van Dam tucked his shirt in, got a haircut, didn't have a scraggly beard. Sorry, I just can't help but grow a scraggly beard. And never fished outside of his sponsor obligations, and proved that you can be that successful. And he's got some great brands behind him. So there's zero doubt, a lot of loyalty there, right? I mean, how long has he been with that group of sponsors? And a couple of them have changed over the years. Quantum went away, really didn't have a choice, and he's on the Lose and the Lose staff there too. But there's an element of communication that happens on social media. You got your phone handy?
Yeah.
What is the most common way outside of texting that you communicate with your friends?
Snapchat and Instagram.
What about Facebook?
I'm not on Facebook that much, but Instagram, Facebook, they're sort of similar.
Do you like Instagram over Snapchat or Snapchat over Instagram?
Instagram over Snapchat. I feel like it's a better way for me to get my way of producing product out to people.
Producing content.
Yeah, producing content.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but you don't want to cloud it down with product, right? You want to keep it personal too, because if you go too far into the selling mode,
The hard sells.
and people are like, I'm done with this.
Yep, 100%.
So I think here's the word. It's authenticity. Your content is very authentic. That's what Eric likes.
Yeah.
That's what Tim likes. And you're just yourself out there. And I think if there's a cool picture to take with a great big walleye or a cool sunset or whatever, there's value. People like that. I'd have zero problem with sunset pictures. It's a joke. It's like, well, you must not have caught fish or shot any deer or turkeys because of your sunset photos. I'm like, yeah, but man, I'm out there for those sunsets. Like, I really like those.
Well, and that's what we've got away from, right?
Yes.
It's all about bragging.
There's room for some bragging.
There is, and don't get me wrong, I totally agree. But the reason why we're out there is because of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, how cool is it to sit there in the dark and listen to gobblers up in the tree? Right?
Yeah.
I know you're jonesing over
Oh
there.
man,
right?
now I just thought of a time I called one in to about like 40 yards, and I just had this guy sitting next to me just breathing like crazy, so excited, and he wouldn't shoot it. I mean, it was there.
No, it wasn't.
I think it
actually.
was.
No, there was a giant oak tree in between me and that gobbler you seen.
I had a shot.
Well, yeah, you didn't have a tag because you'd already shot one the day before.
I did. You remember when I tripped on the fence? Let's tell a story real quick. This is this is one of these times that I get to make myself look like an idiot on purpose, and I do it accidentally. But we had been hunting with Mark's wife, and this is one of those deals where it's on video. So if I could dig it up, I would. But Mark's wife and I were in the blind. Mark was right next to us in a blind. We're all calling, lots of turkeys. It was an amazing morning. We had a great time. Vicky shot the bird. It got up, and while I'm crawling out of the blind, it like pokes its head up. It gets it and takes off. And usually, you can ground a bird and you'll catch it. Well, this sucker came back to life and took off running, and I went after it. And what happened?
Well, there's another whole part of this story. So I promised my wife that I'd back her up, and I know she's going to listen to this, and so she'll giggle, but I promised I'd back her up. I watched her flip that turkey over, and I honestly,
Feathers in the air, like
feathers
pillow
in the
fight.
air,
Yep.
pillowed it. That thing was stone dead. And so I reached behind my blind, whacked a tom.
Yeah, we had
And-
a bunch come in.
Yeah, we had like 15 birds, and I think there was 5 toms in the deal, and literally she smoked that thing. I'm like, it's dead. So now it's my turn. Bang, I got mine. And me and you were talking. We got a double, and all of a sudden you're like, hand me a gun. And I watched Thomas take off, and there was a wire about, I'd say ankle deep in grass.
Oh, man.
Fence, barbed wire.
Barbed wire, mind you. And Thomas is on a dead sprint as much as he can be on a dead sprint. I mean, that's a lot of steam rolling.
It is.
And
A lot of forward momentum.
a lot of forward momentum. And when you hit that, all I heard is, eep, ugh. And that was Thomas hitting the fence and landing face first.
I
on the ground.
I threw that gun like 20 feet in the air.
Oh, man.
And I've never seen a turkey cover a half section so fast in my life. It was gone.
I don't know what happened.
It was just gone.
Now, rabbit trails are welcome in after hours here in Fisherman Storyline. That's a rabbit trail. But the moral of that story is you just don't know it's coming, and that's why we go.
That's
You'd
it.
never know.
I mean, and that's the fun of it, right? And that's what a lot of people forget is there's other aspects to, I mean, a ride out in the boat in the morning with the sun coming up.
Some of the best living there is.
Some of the best living there is. I mean, a lot of things get thought of when you're driving in the mornings, whether it's to the turkey blind or the duck blind or the deer stand, sitting in the deer stand and reminiscing about times with your family or times with friends. I mean, that's what we're forgetting in the outdoor industry.
But see, that matters to me. And sometimes that sunset is what reminds you of those days. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that sunset whether you got a live well full of whatevers or the turkey in your bag or whatever it is, sometimes I think we devalue the experience over the success you did or did not have. Right? I think that it's easy to be critical of somebody that shoots a smaller buck or maybe holds a picture up of a 14-inch walleye or whatever. It's like, listen, that fish may have been the only thing they caught all day, and that sunset may have been the highlight of the day. Let's not take away from that. But on the flip side, what you do in the outdoors, that has to be about you and your fulfillment in those moments. It's not about shooting a deer so you can post it on the gram. I mean, there's too much of that.
100%.
And it's frustrating because you have people, I'm kind of going off on a rant here, but that's what we're doing. You have people that will chase pics for the gram. They'll buy a hunt, they'll buy a guide trip, and they'll make sure they take it. And this is not to devalue a guide's work because we know what they do. They're the pros, right? But when you have a client out there that wants to have a deer on their wall that they paid to have, that's their right. It's when they tell the story that I have a question. Like, are you going to include the part that you were in a tree stand that somebody hung up for you and dumped a pile of corn out there, whatever the case may be, or you were in Mark Kortz's boat while you were trolling for whatever's, is that you that did the work or was it the guide? And there's room to have those experiences. It's how you present that story when you get back with your buddies.
Correct.
Right. And tripping on a barbed wire fence is a big part of that story.
100%.
So
it made the hunt that day. I mean, it may have not for you, but we definitely laughed about it for a long time, and we still talk about it today.
We do, and I think that you got to have those fails. That's really what I'm getting at. We're so keyed in on the successes and the bragging that there are a lot of little failures along the way that are a big part of that memory.
100%.
Yeah.
So no, it's and that's, I guess, what this younger generation is missing. They're all about posting success. There's a lot more to it, right? And one thing you can never take for granted is why we are at where we're at today. And that was people that pioneered the industry to get us to where we are today.
Well, and that's a big part of what we're doing here right now. This podcast, I had this vision of telling the story of the In-Fisherman, the beginning, the founders, I'm talking like Tommy over here. You got to make sure you put your words into a sentence. I want people to remember where they came from. I want people to recognize that there was a foundation created by our forefathers, which is Doug Stange, Al Linder, Ron Linder,
Jimmy.
Jerry McInnes and Ray Scott, and we can go on and on about people.
Forrest Wood.
Wood. They laid the groundwork for us to be successful. And as Tommy was born into a generation where a lot of this was established, and we're all guilty of complacency to a level. It depends on where we're at and what we're doing, but don't forget where you came from. And if you don't know where you came from, then there's two things going on. Either that story hasn't been told or you haven't investigated it. So this podcast, and I preach it every time, I'm sorry if you've heard it over and over again, is to share the story of what happened, what created this facility, what created your introduction to the Pro Walleye Tour, what Tommy's introduction to fishing at an extremely young age largely came from this magazine, the consumption of content for educational purposes. There's no bragging in that magazine, not a single bit. Maybe that's what social media is for. But ultimately, we're headed down a path, and I want to shift gears a little bit here. As we're growing continually, you have to have a thirst for knowledge. And 27 years in the walleye world, do you know it all?
No. No.
Do you get schooled still?
Absolutely. Yeah, and last year was prime example. But, you have to fishing's all about highs and lows. It really is. Your careers are about highs and lows. And I don't care what business you're in. It's all about highs and lows, and it's how you accept the lows.
Right.
And what you learn from the lows that takes it to that next level.
He had a thing that happened. We did together, he and I. I want you to tell the story real briefly about our last Thursday night tournament. How we were coming into he and I had the best season we've had together. Tommy and I fish every Thursday night with a group of guys. There's anywhere from 15 to sometimes 30 boats. It's a competitive group, but we had what we thought the right scenario going in to finish in second place. We weren't going to win first, but we could have won second. What happened?
Yeah, so we were on this lake, and it was a lake that we fished prior and struggled, quote unquote. But now we caught 12 pounds that tournament prior, but we got schooled that tournament and we got almost last place. So we show up and there's about, I'd say, 6 boats fishing, and we decided to come in with a different game plan. We decided to go shallow.
Well, there were more than 6 boats, right?
Not
Was
final.
it the championship?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was a major kick in the you-know-whats. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, we decided to go shallow. We decided to go in with a different game plan. Dad, Thomas, drops a 4 right away, and that was
But what happened?
heartbreaking.
Talk about what happened. It happened so close to the boat and so fast.
I thought he was gonna flip it in because he had a frog, and you
You can almost always flip a frogfish.
yeah, and then it just dropped at the boat. I could have gotten the net. That I still live with that to this day, but you got to shake it off.
We got kicked in the chin.
We sure did.
Well, we kept going.
Yeah, we
Right.
did, and we did eventually grind out 4 fish, but
Not 5.
not 5. We needed 5.
So the point I'm making is you kind of think you have the tiger by the tail and you're making a lot of good decisions. I don't think we got cocky. That one fish would have helped us a lot.
We got too comfortable.
We got too comfortable.
I got too comfortable.
And that's the beginning of complacency.
Yep.
And that happens a lot, right? You just get comfortable doing what you do.
And I think that if you
You
look
don't
back
push
at our,
yourself.
you got to push yourself to learn. But in a tournament scenario, over a course of a year, a season, one fish will cost you. That one fish will catch up with. Now, it just so happened it was our last one. It doesn't matter if it happens your first tournament, the one in the middle of the year, or like in our case, the last one of the season. We just made a bad decision. It was too big to flip anyways, but I was like, it ate. Like I was about ready to reel it in, and it ate on the last little bit. You know, you're just like, and no, it came off. But he was out fishing again. Like if it wasn't the next day, he went angry fishing.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
You got to go fix what you messed up instead of staying at home licking your wounds. The one thing that I'll give him credit on is even here ice fishing, things get tough. Sometimes you got to take a break. You need a day off, kind of recoup. But that hunger to go out again is like there again.
If you lose that, you better quit doing it.
That's right.
Or figure out a way to change that, right?
Exactly.
And for me, it's easy because I love to fish multi-species. You know, I fish bass tournaments, I fish walleye tournaments, I fish salmon tournaments.
Muskie tournaments?
No, I draw a line. But, you know, and I enjoy saltwater. So for me, that keeps me fresh all the time. Right. And so you have to keep it fresh. Like if it's the repetitive thing, right? If that's when you get complacent because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's real easy. And it's fine to get comfortable with a technique, right? But being versatile is how you get to the next level.
What were we too comfortable with? What technique cost us fish in tournaments?
Just flipping our.
No,
big guys.
you're right. What were we doing too much of?
Fishing deep.
Right. And we can catch fish deep. If they're deep, we catch them. And we're in the game.
Yeah.
But we weren't. It's so intimidating sometimes to be comfortable in an area, but then to break away from that and do the opposite. And then something cool about a bass, right, is they're going to live in every possible area of that lake. And some of the guys that are particularly good in this group, they fish very shallow. And you're like, there's no way there's a 5-pounder in here, but they are somehow. We haven't figured that out.
No,
But what did we do to get over that?
We went shallow.
We went fishing.
Yeah, we went fishing.
Committed to days. Well, the reason I think tournaments are important, so at In-Fisherman, there's no tournaments anymore. You know, the PWT's gone, which is our next topic. But the reason I think tournaments are important for Tommy and I, or the younger generation and especially the guys that just love to fish is it really gives you the opportunity to see what other people are doing in a manner where you have to produce results. And it's a little bit of pressure that forces you, it forces you to stick to a schedule. I love that we fish these Thursday nighters together because I know every single week we have a set aside time to go. And I think it's real easy to set a time to go and then be like, the wind's blowing, I'm not going to go today. Or it's raining, I'm not going to go today. We go no matter what. You go no matter what. And so it forces you to be on the water. And if you hate losing, you're going to find there's a good scratch to that itch in the competitive fishing world. You don't have to. The beautiful thing about what we do and what we have here is bass anglers and walleye anglers is you don't have to have the objective to fish professionally to still participate in the sport. And I think that motivates a lot of the different levels that might lead to the top. And maybe you find that talent, maybe you find a passion or whatever that takes you to a professional level, but you don't have to. And I think that when you're talking about effectively promoting products, effectively sharing experiences on social media, it doesn't matter where you go. Everybody has their level that they're happy with. And fulfillment, and I'll talk about this in one of those articles, your personal fulfillment should be your priority when you hit the water. If that's at a tournament, great. If that's with a bobber and a hook, more power to you. If that's with forward-facing sonar, get on with it. It's when we start telling other people they got to do it our way. That's when I've had enough.
Absolutely. I mean, I started with my grandparents, my parents, right? Sitting on the end of the dock, catching bluegills, catching crappies on a hook and a bobber, right? That's where we all started.
There's something primal still to this day when you see that bobber bounce. You're like,
There's nothing more fun than a spring crappie or bluegill bite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Up shallow, just randomly casting a bobber and watching that bobber go down and setting the hook, right? But that's what we've lost, right? Like we always want to say, well, he's just over there bobber fishing, right? He doesn't know what he's doing.
not true.
Not true.
Mm-mm.
He's enjoying his time on the water.
Mm-hmm.
Who's it for me to say what he's doing is wrong, right? That guy might just want to be on the lake and not see his bobber go down. He's
And
just
watch
happy
the
to be
sunset.
He's happy to be on the lake, right? He had a rough week at work. You know, those types of things. Like that's the sad thing about where our social media is taking us, right? We always want to bash people for doing certain things. It's a cheater's way, blah, 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 blah.
Shooting small bucks, you're ruining it for everybody. Shooting too many does, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, for me, maybe it's filling the freezer for that family. Maybe they can't afford meat.
Yeah.
You know,
Or if you want to augment the meat you buy with really good, clean, Midwestern corn-fed deer, that's a good thing.
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, just be aware of, you know, let people enjoy the outdoors. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Enjoying it at the end of the day. As long as you enjoyed your day outdoors, I don't care if you caught 2 fish or 50 fish.
You know, we just fished the Brainerd JC's extravaganza, and one of the things I've noticed here, and I don't know that I have a problem with this, but Taylor had she skated or skied. I keep saying skate, but skied the sections. In Iowa, we call it districts. I'm a little difficult there. So she skied for her chance to make state this week, and had practice the same day as the extravaganza. We were going to go as a family. She's doing very well. Had to go do that. So we had 2 extra tickets for this. I called like 4 buddies, and nobody wanted it. They're like, no, not coming. And have you ever done it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't do it anymore.
No.
Well, yeah, I get it. I mean, I understand, but I had.
How was the wind? Sitting on a bucket, wind blowing,
How was it,
not
Tommy?
a shelter.
I was genuinely pissed off.
Exactly.
He was grumpy.
And I've done that same thing, right? I mean, my dad drugged me up to that thing numerous times to have a chance to win that pickup, right?
I didn't fish, Mark, and I had a great time.
Yeah.
I didn't even fish.
Well, no wonder why you didn't catch one.
Well, I mean, I flew the drone in that snow. I should drag up a photo of that. That was pretty exciting. But the point is, like, I get if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to participate in one element or the other, whatever, do it makes you happy. But, you know, sometimes it ain't about the fishing. And I know that's a cliche, but I walked around hole to hole, talking smack with friends, saying hi to people I hadn't seen since the last bass tournament we fished, watching Tommy fiddle fart around with this because it wasn't working. And you know, his fun meter got pegged, but you were also out there at 6.
That's true.
Yeah. You were out there real early. So, I mean, it
Wow, you were getting after it.
talk about, okay,
Got to get those holes claimed.
talk about pacing yourself.
Yeah, no, that's
On some level.
It's real easy to get burnt out, and especially during the summer for me, fishing tournaments. So I have to reset all the time. But when I reset, it might be going catch a giant smallmouth or just going out and fun fishing. Right? But it's real easy to get burnt out doing it. Like we're up early in the morning, we're on the water all day. We get back, eat a dinner, go to bed, and repeat, right? And it's every day throughout the summer. But you have to change it up so that doesn't happen, right? I mean, that it's real easy to do the same thing. But with that being said, if you want to become better at a certain technique, you have to put your time in and you have to dedicate it to that technique, right? The thing going right now, forward-facing sonar. If you're not willing to dedicate your time, like if you go out there for an hour and don't catch a fish on forward-facing sonar, whether it's, a high pressure or low pressure and the fish just aren't biting and you're casting and shaking a minnow in front of them and they don't want to bite it, okay, doesn't matter. They're biting somewhere, I promise you.
Fish biting somewhere.
There is a fish biting somewhere. And so you have to, whether it's, fishing shallow, you have to dedicate time to get good at that, right? If you're trolling for walleyes, man, I didn't catch them up in 8 foot where I caught them yesterday. What am I going to do today to make that better? Well, I'm going to use my side imaging and I'm going to use my 2D sonar, or I'm going to use my down imaging, or maybe I'm going to use my forward-facing sonar, but I'm going to find out where those fish are and where they're active, and I'm going to go catch them. And that's the difference. That's one thing you see from the average angler to the tournament angler, or the guys that are good at tournament fishing, is having the versatility to do different things and making the right decisions at the right time.
Making the right decisions quickly.
Correct.
We did try to go do something different than what the bulk of everybody else was doing at that last tournament, and I think it was the right decision to go shallow.
It was, yeah.
There were big fish in there, weren't there?
There sure were. Winning fish were in there.
But there wasn't any room for a bad move.
And that's the next thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people don't realize that a lot of times when I go out, I might be looking for 5 bites for a tournament. And I fish other circuits where every fish counts, right? So then it's a different mentality to go do that. So, you have to, there's a couple things when it comes to tournament fishing. What you're there for. Are you there to win? Are you there just to have fun with your buddies, which a lot of guys do? That's great.
Yep.
No problems. And especially on Thursday nighters, that's like a bowling league. That's just getting out with your buddies, maybe cracking a cold one afterwards or having a soda afterwards and just talking about fishing. That's what keeps it fresh, right? Mm-hmm. Just talking to the guys.
And
you moved to a new area here, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now?
That was our goal, to learn the fishing.
Correct.
And I think that, now I'm not saying you need to fish a tournament to get good at fishing. But what I am saying is, if you decide, like, there's a difference between fun fishing and fishing a derby. The fun fishing all of a sudden becomes a lot more productive after you've spent time fishing a tournament. So you've heard me say it here. Mark has said it. Fishing tournaments is a great way to learn an area, a lake, a species, some techniques. All this, it's a great method to that. But why do we say that? Because if you are going to spend the time to go reset, to go to a lake you can hardly launch a boat on that's so full of dumb bass, it's ridiculous. That tournament time is going to make your fun fishing way more productive. So if you're on the fence about, hey, I like tournaments, maybe I don't know, I don't want it to ruin fishing for me. I've heard that a lot. It's going to ruin fishing for me. Well, I've fished with those people that say that, and they don't catch as many. So I think at the very least, it forces you to learn something new. It challenges you. And I mean, my career has largely been made on tournament fishing, as has yours. You don't have a career yet, so we aren't going to talk about your career. But things have changed in the tournament fishing world too.
Oh yeah.
And as of recently, I wouldn't necessarily say for the better. But talk about, well, this little picture over here, is that we found one somewhere here that was your last. The last championship of the PWT. Who won the last championship?
No, I was. It's funny you say that, Thomas. It was Bay City, Michigan, and I recognized it, and it brings back a lot of great memories. And That was in Bay City, Michigan, 2008. It was the last PWT championship, and I was lucky enough to pull that one off. Second place was our good friend Tommy.
Tommy Scarless, bless him.
Yeah. So, but so when I look at tournament fishing and how it's changed, and I don't care whether you talk about walleye fishing, I don't care whether you talk about bass fishing, whether you talk about saltwater, because I follow them all. It's changed in the fact that we don't create characters anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the Kevin Van Dams, the Rick Cluns, the Watts brothers, the Parsons and Cavias. I mean, I can go on and on and on about, legends I looked up to back in the day that I see this next generation, right? And there's some characters, and there's some good, and there's some bad. I see both. But the tournament organizations don't create a fan base or a following because they aren't creating characters that people want to relate to.
Yeah.
I don't care how you relate to them, whether they're just good fishermen and you relate to them like that, or they're characters and you relate to them like that, right? We've always had, characters in bass fishing.
You're right to a point. You're totally right that that's going on. But I mean, you look at the original cast of characters, right? You have the old school,
the Ron Seelhoffs. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
But I think what's happened is they were the originators. They were the OG department, right? They were the first ones to really bring walleye fishing mainstream.
I mean,
right?
yeah. I mean,
but now that because it got so popular, it just kind of had the a funnel effect backwards, right? Where it just got so much bigger. There's more leagues. There's more organizations. There's still your top levels. And I think that those characters are in development. How about we say that? A lot of them are in development, but there hasn't been as strong of a showing as those characters become of age or earn their stripes, if you will. And I don't know if people
you know where that changed? FLW.
Bass and walleye?
Bass and walleye, both. And what happened was, and nothing against Irwin, I mean, I was very thankful to be able to fish there and make a lot of money there. And there were some of the biggest pots that we've ever fished for, whether you talk about $1 million that Suggs won, or whether you talk $450,000 that Scott Glorvigan or Dean Arnoldson won. I mean, there was some major money flying around there for a long time. And what happened is it became sponsor orientated driven
over
the anglers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, PWT, everybody knew everybody, and whether you picked up an In-Fisherman or a walleye insider, you knew all the anglers, and there was publicity about it all year long, right? They posted the top 50 at the end of the year, and there was big articles about that. Bass, same way. I mean,
innovations occurring, stories are happening, characters are building.
And you knew the guys that were bait orientated or flippers, and you knew the guys that were sonar orientated and offshore fishermen and crankers, and whether you're talking about bass or walleye. So there was guys, Ron Seelhoff, Leadcore, Mike Goffron, jig fishermen, you knew what those guys were doing when they went out, and you just don't have that anymore, right?
I think the talent pool shifted. You're right. It seems like there was a point where anglers were they weren't necessarily single. If it was a flipping tournament, it was going to be Tommy Biffle, Denny Brower, Matt Herron, legendary flipper in his own right, good friend of ours. We love us some Matt Herron. But how about this perspective? Have people become better at more techniques so that those singular superstars are overshadowed? Or what's happened? I don't feel like we've lost. I don't think there's a lack of talent. Right?
No, I mean, look at
it's almost like everybody's gotten better.
Look at what Wheeler and Cannell have done in the last couple of years. I mean, there's guys, or Tom Wynn on the walleye side of things. Corey Sprangle went on his little run there. I mean, there's guys that go on certain runs, and it's how you carry yourself through those runs on how long your career lasts too, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys that have disappeared, couple hit wonders, and all of a sudden they're gone. And that comes back to marketing, right?
It does come back to marketing. So I'm going to ask Tommy a question here, and I'm going to come to you. Well, I'm going to start with you. So if you were to pick out, and you don't get to pick the same names, influential walleye anglers or bass anglers. So let's just start with either or. Who is somebody that was a big influence for you?
No, I mean, I can name quite a few, but Gary Roaches of the world on the walleye side, Ron Seelhoff's, Al Linder. I mean, we can go through that generation of anglers. On the bass side, obviously you have to throw a Rick Clunn in there. You have to throw a Kevin Van Dam. You have to throw Denny Brower. I mean, George Cochran.
How many of these names do you know?
About half of them.
Mm-hmm. So give me a few of the. So if you and your buddies are hanging out talking about your favorite bass fisherman, who comes to mind?
Kevin Van Dam.
Yeah?
And Seth Fighter, especially around here.
Mm-hmm. Who else?
Well, for me, Brandon Palaniuk comes to mind. I like the way he fishes.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Lucas, because you, me, and him went fishing.
Yep,
one
we got to
time.
fish with Justin one time. These two jokers, little sideline. So, and Justin, we've stayed in touch over the years. They were at Mille Lacs for the Major League Fishing event a couple of years ago, and he said, "Hey, we're going to be close. Let's get together." We connected, and he said, "I just want to go fishing someplace close." So we went down to this lake just south of town here, and I picked him up. We drove out, fished in my boat.
And Texas was playing Alabama.
Texas was playing Alabama. Well, Tommy, I get Tommy in the boat with arguably one of the greatest finesse anglers of our time. And those two jacklegs sat in the back of the boat with their feet in the water and watched Alabama football while I fished up front.
Oh, that was amazing.
It was amazing. And they were both, did they win or lose?
They barely won.
Barely won. But that was kind of the beginning of the demise of the, as Tommy sees it.
Was that the fall of the Alabama?
That was the
pre-fall.
start of it. That was the start of it.
Go Big Ten.
I was trembling.
Yeah.
That day. I was like,
But
come on.
but the example here that I'm giving is you look at the generational relationship to who's doing what. And every guy that he just mentioned, they're younger than me. They're younger, sure as crap, younger than you. So those influences, I think that the younger generation is easier. They better gravitate towards anglers that are closer to their age. I mean, most of the guys you mentioned are retired.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But see, that's the natural way of things. You can't affect the fact that we grow older and we aren't able to compete or physically be able to fish, 9 professional 4-day tournaments a year. That takes its toll. So naturally, you're going to have a level of turnover, and the generations are going to relate to those who are involved at that time. And I don't want to forget about those. Like, those are important names to me too. Every one of those guys are anglers that I valued when I was young, and
They're the reason why we're here today.
they're the reason why we're here today, and we don't want to forget that. But on the flip side, as that torch gets passed, the next generation's influence is going to happen at that level too. And those guys, and most of them do. None of the names you mentioned I have a problem with. I think they're all good anglers. They're good men.
They carry themselves well.
And they're representative of what's coming down the pike. So hopefully, in the process of being influencers, right? Not the term like social media, but they're influencing the next generation. I hope that there's at least enough respect from all of them to understand that they came from something too.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, when you look at even the guys Tommy brought up there, right? They're well dressed, they're well kept, they're well spoken. You can put them up in front of a crowd and they can handle an audience.
Yep.
They can do a lot of that stuff. And that's what I'm afraid of we're starting to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you start to see how these guys are dressed out in a boat, I mean, remember, you're a professional. I don't care if you look at NASCAR. I don't care if you look at golf. You're not out there in a white T-shirt and your tighty whities out there fishing, right? That's not who you want to.
It's hard to be a sponsor if somebody behaves that way, right, and not have a problem with it. And
I don't get it.
There's a point where I think you need to get back to. I've joked with Seth. I don't know that he'll ever do this, but I think it would be pretty sweet if he showed up to the Classic one year with his hair cut short, wearing a tux, be super formal, And the funny thing is,
good luck with that.
I know, but we love that persona, right?
Yeah.
There's something we like about this, especially being a Minnesota cat. But what if he did it once?
I remember Seth when he had short hair. I fished tournaments. I mean, me and Seth fished my Wednesday nighters, Thursday nighters together, So I remember him when he was like that, and now, I mean, the kid's gone on to do amazing things. I knew when he was young he was going to do amazing things. Even from the Minnesota Silverado days, like the kid was just on fire. Like he's just a fish head.
Yeah, well,
Like,
remember when Skeet Reese cut his hair?
Yeah.
He won the Classic.
I mean, like
I'm just saying it can happen.
I mean, you look back at these guys, and you can tell when somebody's got it and when they don't. Right? You're either a fish head or you're not. If you live for fishing, you got it. I mean, like there's just different levels. The Kevin Van Dams of the world. I mean, guys that just don't get enough of it. Right? Me, I'm allergic to fish.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I pushed through it as a young kid, carrying an inhaler around just because I had a love for fishing. And I don't care if it's salt. I don't care. I mean, I get asked this all the time. What's your favorite fish to catch? The one that's biting?
Yeah. Because it ain't the one you're eating.
I don't care if it's bluegills. I don't care. Like, really, the tug is the drug at the end of the day.
The business still adapts. The business still evolves, and I think that we've seen some. I don't want to go negative, but we are going to talk about something that's concerning. And one of the things that has always been on my mind, because I was at that event, the FLW event where I met you, and was working with Tommy Scarless, Jimmy Bell, Ross Grothy, very close friends of ours now, and I'm not a walleye guy. You know this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not my
100%.
jam. I like to catch them. Tommy is very good at walleyes. He's catching a lot of nice ones. Check out his Instagram. He caught a great big one the other night.
I sure
You did. That was a stud.
Yeah. I caught that on a tiny tungsten jig. Had my heart racing the whole time.
Drag squealing.
Yeah,
4-pound
drag was
4-pound
squealing.
test?
Yeah, 4-pound test.
That's awesome.
But you know what that is? That's walleye excitement.
Absolutely.
That's walleye excitement. It's still here. That part of the industry has changed, and I want to talk a little bit about this, Mark. There's been some things that have happened. We endured the Bassmaster and Major League Fishing thing, and now National Professional Fishing League is a part of that. And we don't know how that's going to go. It's in our face right now, but you know the PWT days were special. I never saw one of those or participated in one of those. But I know like that is the heyday of walleye fishing when it was at its peak. And Tommy Scarless told me on and on. He's like, how do we reinvigorate walleye excitement? Like what you saw when he was talking about his walleye. How do we bring that back? Because while it's not as big and never will be as big as the bass fishing area, it's a very big segment of the fishing population.
It's giant. I mean, and people don't realize. I mean, you know, I've been with Berkeley 27 years. I've been lucky to be with the same company my whole career. And one of the things we talk about is how big the industry is in the upper Midwest, right? But getting back to what you were asking, you know, the difference was back then, and there again, it goes back to the same thing, right? At the end of the tournament, on a 3-day tournament, on that last night, we all went and celebrated the guy that won, right? And it was a big deal. There was no hard feelings. We all talked about what we did, where we were, what we were doing. Like, it was having a conversation, looking a guy in the eye and shaking his hand saying, congratulations. That's really changed in our industry. Like, you don't see that type. I don't know if it's a jealousy thing. I really don't. Like, it's just weird how anglers relate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a handful of us that still, you know, like at the end of a tournament, go up and shake each other's hands and say, great job, or, you know, next time you're going to get them, those types of things. But, you know, if I look at what's happened in the walleye industry, you know, I started in Nawa for a year, and that was a Cabela's run circuit, and then PWT, and was fishing both PWT and FLW, fishing, you know, 14 tournaments a year between championships and regular season, 6 events at each championship. And then FLW went away, and then we went to National Walleye Tour. And National Walleye Tour started off, we were fishing, I think, 3 tournaments and a championship. And then we added a 4th tournament and a championship. And you just, like, I shake my head and just wonder what happened to that industry there, that it changed so much. And
I have some theories. You and I have talked at length about this.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I think there's a failure to adapt. And I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, because, you know, I think it's the nature of the beast.
I'm going to point them.
Well, we'll get to that. Let's do that in a minute here. But the big thing that I'm really concerned about is how how the fishing world has evolved and advanced, and I fear the walleye side of that refuses to advance. I think that the PWT was so big. I remember seeing videos like you're talking big money. You're talking,
I mean, two to three TV shows per tournament, and FLW did the same thing. There was some great media companies doing it that actually knew about the sport, cared about the sport, taught about the sport and what we were doing.
Instead of walleye fishing trying to be as big as bass, because let's just be honest, by the numbers, it's not going to ever be.
It's 6 months a year. It's 6 months a year versus 12 months a year. And that's the difference. I mean, really.
It's the difference, but the skill of the angler, the difficulty of the fish, I'll tell you what, there's no better proving ground than a professional walleye angler's boat, because you want stuff to make sure it's going to survive. That's the proving ground.
Well, and second of all, we were fishing offshore long before a bass guy ever thought about fishing offshore.
That's right.
We knew structure long before a bass guy ever knew about structure, right? I mean, if they couldn't dip their rod in the water and touch bottom, they were lost. And I'm not I'm being honest. If it wasn't a point out in the middle of a lake where you could cast a Carolina rig, or weeds that you could cast a spinner bait or a frog up in, or flip a jig in,
I would say that today I think that's balanced a little bit.
Yeah,
you've
for
got
sure.
they're both groups are very good at their electronics and finding the fish, especially new areas to find fish. But going back to what's a large contributor to the walleye, the competitive walleye market. Okay, and I want to be clear on this. This is not a bang on walleye fishing. It's a discussion about walleye tournaments as innovators, as personalities, as like I said, proving grounds. Like you were, walleye anglers were they were the original like electronic savvy anglers. They were the best at it for a long time. So what's happened is there's been a fracturing of the competitive community that's already not super big. There's been one mainstay. Really, it's the MWC has endured a lot of this, and I've not been a part of that group. I can't speak to it. So the FLW went away. You had the NWT pop up and kind of provide that top-level tour thing. You had the MWC, and then the AIM Pro Walleye Series popped up, and our buddy Ross Grothy has done amazing things in that organization, and he had a reset in priorities. He had two young boys coming up that showed real talent on the water, and that's what they do.
Family.
Now, it's a family. It's a competitive family environment where I think as his boys get older, they may have the chops to fish an NWT or a top echelon type of organization. I know that Ross is enjoying his time right now, but he stepped away from that because he had a problem to an extent, and I'm not going to speak for him. There was some concerns with how things were run. One of the biggest problems, number one, first and foremost, you want to save the walleye industry. If you want to save the competitive walleye market, you have to outlaw live bait.
100%. 100%.
Not outlaw live bait for the guy that wants to go catch a bunch of fish. I'm not saying that. In the competitive scene, it's
anybody can throw a worm or a leech or a minnow on a hook and catch fish. Let's be honest.
That's right.
I don't care if it's a bluegill. I don't care if it's a bass. I don't care what it is. You can throw live bait on a hook and you'll catch fish.
That's right.
Right? If we want to change it, artificial.
Artificial only.
Artificial only.
Yeah.
100%. And what does that do? It presses the industry to make better baits. To innovate, to make baits that catch fish, which we've got a lot of great companies that create baits that we catch fish, right?
If there's a handful of soft plastics makers today, if they got into the walleye game, there would be some unbelievably cool stuff to come out.
100%. And you'd see it on the bass side, right? I just worked with a company. I worked with Berkeley this year to create a bait that's going to work for both bass and walleye, and we're seeing the numbers, and it's great. So, but getting back to that, we're the only national circuit that does not have live coverage of some sort.
So
what do these sponsors want? They want real-time live coverage. It does any sponsors, it does them no good to have a product come out in December when we're froze up here, and the product that we were catching fish on was in May or June or July. You know, and so when you can see it live and you know what's happening, instantaneously.
So I can give an example, and I'm not going to get to the exact tournament, but a couple, 3-4 years ago, there was a particular bait on a Bassmaster Live tournament that a particular angler was using to catch smallmouth bass, and it sold out during the tournament.
The flatworm has changed smallmouth fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down.
We love that thing.
Ugh, especially on Mille Lacs. Holy moly.
And I don't care if it's walleye. I don't care if it's bass. The flatworm absolutely, and max scent. I mean, that was really the start of max scent. I'm lucky to be with that company, and that bait right there that you're looking at is the old jigworm. I mean, it's identical to our old walleye. I swear to this day that they changed the mold up a little, but not much. Because you could have poured that thing and it would have looked identical.
But the key there is people were watching in real time with a bait that was relatively new at that time, or
it was brand new,
and you couldn't go to Tackle Warehouse, you couldn't find it on Bass Pro Shops. It was gone.
There was a black
during
market
the tournament.
I mean, there was honestly there was a black market. I mean, I had them. All the pro staff from Berkeley was calling me, "Hey, send me whatever you got because we're catching them." And I need more, and I can't get more. We didn't have any at the factory. We didn't have any at the plant.
Take this excitement right now that we're talking about and plug that same thing into the wall.
Oh, 100%.
It would play. It would
100%.
totally play. So let's roll this out a little further. I'm a media guy. I like to tell stories. I like to. I've worked with a lot of pro anglers over the years. There's a lot of great stories. We're doing a story right now that's important. The way that this works, if you take the professional walleye organization, you restructure how they cover the sport, when and where. Now, there are complications. I can't sit here and say I've got the immediate fix, but I know one of the directions that needs to change is the live bait scenario. The trolling is great. It's really hard to cover a tournament trolling. Like it's
nobody wants to watch a yellow board go across the water. I mean,
it can be blank.
God bless Bruce DeShano and Offshore Tackle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have changed walleye fishing.
For sure.
They did.
Yep.
I mean, they changed the way we trolled. I mean, now all of a sudden you can put 15, 16, 17, 18 baits out and they're not getting tangled.
But instead of leaving it open, maybe you say, okay, we're going to do one trolling tournament a year. Or I don't know. I think that's a discussion we got to have.
Yeah.
But it is hard to cover that from a fan perspective, unless you're just catching fish hand over fist. But anyway, so let's go back to the format. You're gonna ban live bait in the professional walleye scene. Naturally, what's going to happen is you're going to have anglers find ways to be more productive with innovative techniques. You're going to have the right media involved to cover it live while it's happening, and second of all, provide content post-event. And whether that's in a magazine, and I really do think there needs to be like a Walleye Insider that needs to be associated with that organization to produce in today's market, let's just say a quarterly magazine.
Yep, absolutely.
So 4 times a year, cover all the bases. And you're talking about new techniques that are coming to the forefront. We haven't discovered everything there is to discover about walleye fishing. And if you take live bait out of it, you've got how many guys average fish the NWT?
I mean, last year I think we averaged 140 some boats.
So out of 140 some odd boats, let's just round it down to 100. You've got 100 good walleye sticks plus, give or take, that are going to find a way to catch fish. And of that group, half of them are probably going to do almost the same thing. Half of those left are going to do something different. And then the bottom 2%, they're going to do something that nobody else is doing. All right? That gets covered on live.
And that's happened.
It's happening now. Happened last year. Then you have the innovation occurring to where demand is brought up. Just like we're talking about the flatworm when that sold out. Okay, this is really working on Erie right now. Everybody wants immediate gratification. They want instant information. They want to take that out this weekend after these guys leave.
And it doesn't matter if you're at Erie or on another body of water. It's like
it may work everywhere.
Absolutely, and we've proven it does.
So if this happens, all of a sudden, you've got a renewed value in the walleye angler that a certain company wants to spend money on as a sponsorship, as a pro staffer. And you're like, man, we're making content. There's money to be made as a professional walleye angler all of a sudden. I think it literally goes back to the crux of live bait and no live coverage.
100%. And, that's the sad thing. And then, let's keep going on this, Thomas. So then over the last couple of years, we've had a new management company come in. All about it. Great. No problem. You've been in the industry. You understand it a little bit. But what you don't understand is all of a sudden you've got a handful of guys that make a living in this industry, and they aren't dumb, right? We've been doing it a long time, and we've seen what works and what doesn't work. We're not telling you you're doing it wrong. We're just trying to help you do it better, right? We're trying to grow the sport. And all of a sudden we get a little pushback, and, well, it doesn't matter. Well, then all of a sudden we start to look at payouts. Mm-hmm. And payouts have gone downhill. And I don't care if we talk about bass. I don't care if we talk about walleye, redfish, doesn't matter.
It's a problem across the board.
It's a problem across the board, right? So what happened there? Because, I mean, for the most part, a lot of the sponsors are the same, right? It's not that they're cutting back money. It's something that somebody's taking more money out of the cookie jar than what they originally were. And I get it. I mean, media's not cheap, right? Yeah. I mean,
to do what I just suggested would take a potload of money.
100%. But to invest to make it better, to make it bigger, you have to invest, right? I don't care what business you're in. If you want a better business, you have to invest in your business. And so that's what we've struggled with. And then the next thing is, me and you kind of talked about this before we came on air, is what's the word I want to use? Me and you talked about it, but there's some anglers that don't have credit. Well, I don't want to use credibility. What's the word I'm looking for?
Maybe their ethical perceptions out of whack.
There you go. Ethical.
No names.
Yeah. No,
I don't know.
No names.
I wasn't there, but
yeah, no names. But all of a sudden things happen, and now it's a joke, right? Because nothing got done. And then
there needs to be, and this is bass fishing, crappie fishing, catfishing, walleye fishing, all of the tournament circuits that there has to be a standard of accountability. And I don't care how bad it looks on the parent group, on the organization. If you let any type of unethical behavior slide, then that opens the door for anyone else to come in and make poor decisions. And we've seen it happen at, every level, from high school to college to Thursday nighters. And I'm not saying anybody's ever done this, but stuff has happened. You're like, wait a minute, there was a rule for that.
Yeah.
And we're not going to enforce it.
Well, let's talk about the one thing that blew up the industry, right? I mean, cheating's been going on forever.
We got weights and fish.
We got weights and fish. You know what? That tournament director took it upon himself to call them out on social media when they were standing there, and look what happened. They got called out, and it blew up. I mean, it was overseas. It was on national news. It was freaking
a quick way to go world famous. Just a terrible path to that.
They did.
Can you imagine?
They did go world famous.
We all knew, there are people that cheat in fishing all over the globe. Like, we know that happens, but to see that, you're like, oh my gosh, I wish we were doing a podcast when it happened, because that would have been a fun one to have. I mean,
it's incredible. So I guess what needs to happen is there needs to be credibility brought back to the sport. Anglers have to, pre-fishing is to go out and find the fish you're going to fish during the tournament.
There's another point you made I agree with.
And
there ought to be an off-limits period.
There ought to be an off-limits period. It's going to make the fisheries we go to much better. It's going to give, let's be honest, walleye fishing, there's, I don't know, probably, I'm just going to use the number 15 of us making full-time living in walleye fishing. So there's a lot of guys that have weekday jobs, weekend jobs. They have full-time jobs. So if you take that, only 15 guys out of 140 are working citizens or working anglers, they can't take that much time off. Right. So now all of a sudden we put a Saturday to Wednesday practice period, tournaments Thursday, Friday, maybe a third day on Saturday. They're home Sunday. They only need to take a week off. There's a lot of guys right now in walleye fishing going and spending a week and a half at a location because they can, or they own their own businesses or whatever. Is that good for the communities that we're going to? Absolutely. Is it good for the fisheries? It makes the bite tougher when they get that beat up for a week. It limits the bodies of water we can go to.
You're not shaking off walleyes. That's another thing we got to, you can shake off a bass in a lot of scenarios, but that just doesn't happen in that sport.
No, and I mean, let's be honest. Walleyes are a put and take type fish, right? The reason why the people watch us fishing tournaments is to learn how to go fill their freezers full of walleyes. Let's be honest. I mean, that's why, and a lot of people argue with me about, all these rules and whether it's aim or whether it's, a weigh, catch, and release, or whether it's a measure release tournament, or whether it's what we do in the NWT, where it's actually, we've got a slot limit to follow, and then there's overs. Well, the general consumer that's going to that body of water has to follow those same rules that we're fishing by. So what's wrong with that? Nothing. So, and it makes it a challenge when you get there. Okay, am I going to go catch my 5 slots? Am I going to, go for my big fish first? Where are the biggest slots in the body of water? There's a lot of things that go into tournament angling that I think are a part of being a professional and trying to figure that out. So that's AIM's doing a great job. I mean, they've got a great following. They've got lots of people, and they go to great bodies of water, and it's good for the fishery for the most part. Whether you catch weigh and release or you catch measure and release, those fish are out of the water for a certain amount of time, and they're not getting drug around in live well. Yep. So I get that, right?
Walleyes don't handle a live well like a bass does.
No, they don't. But if you take care of them, today's technologies in our boats, you can do it. There's too much technology. I guarantee if you went and looked at mortality rates in walleye tournaments, and granted, it's going to be higher at certain times of year, but if those fish are donated to a good cause, a food bank or a old folks home, and somebody gets to have a fresh walleye meal, who cares?
I love that.
We're not catching more fish than the average anglers out there on any given day, or the charters. I mean, I'm going to use Lake Erie, for example. You take 140 tournament boats out there for 2 days, they aren't touching the population compared to
what did we hear? I think a recent number is 130 million walleyes in Lake Erie or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
Well, so to piggyback off of some of the things you said here, one of the key components to what elevates the top level of touring professionals is their ability to adapt, their ability to make good decisions, how innovative bait presentations adapt from tournament to tournament or year over year, whatever that is. But the other thing that you didn't talk about, and I'm curious what you think here, and I know this would make your life harder, so I don't know you'd have a problem with this. It's hard for me to look at a top touring level, consider them professional when they're fishing 2 days. Because you and I we know this. The further you drag out the tournament, the luck factor decreases by the day. Now, this is an open-ended statement here where I'm happy to hear opinions, but I feel like 3 days is the minimum, 4 days is the maximum. I don't know that the walleye world's ready for 4-day tournaments. I think
we had them
at the PWT.
FLW
was 4 days. Oh, I did a bunch of those. That's right.
Yeah, but
you do need to keep it. You got to keep it real in that realm. I think I get it. Maybe the staffing isn't available. It's more. There's a lot of things that probably set it up the way that it is. But I feel like you need to expand the competition days, incorporate an off limits period, eliminate live bait, and increase the coverage. And I think if you do those things, it becomes a little bit more competitive, a little bit more engaging. I guess, I said something about trolling. I don't know that I have a problem with trolling because it's a lot of fun.
It can be.
If you're in the boat,
it's a fish catching freaking technique.
And
right?
It's full of science.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. And there are people that are better at it, period, than anyone else. So
100%.
There's an application there. So how about we go back to what I said earlier? Maybe we keep that in the conversation and figure out a way to make it work.
It has to be. I mean, because
that's the culture walleye fishing is trolling.
That's right. 100%. And so I wouldn't get rid of that. But, getting back to, like you said, I mean, the 4 days, not a problem. Especially with today's slot limits and stuff that we have, it darn sure is a lot of luck. And I shouldn't say luck. I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to say putting yourself in the right spot, catching the right fish at the right time, right? And if that fish, because a lot of these tournaments, we can only there's no cull. So, that fish has to come at the right time.
But think about the innovation and the story that comes with that. Tommy, understand this. So when there's a story I want to tell you about I thought was cool. Chase Parsons won Lake Oahe. That was a 4-day derby.
3-day.
3-day derby. You can't cull fish on Lake Oahe in South Dakota. So the fish you put in your live well are the fish you get away.
Really?
Yeah. And Mark can talk to this. So think about for a minute. All right, we've struggled for 2.5 hours. We haven't caught a fish. We catch a nice 17-inch 2-pound bass. But you're like, well, this isn't going to do us any good. We got to make a call. You put that in the live well because you're short a limit? Well, you do that throughout the day, and all of a sudden you put that 5th fish in the live well, that's your limit. You don't get to cull them out.
Mm-hmm.
How would that change our strategy?
Boy, that would...
Sounds stressful, doesn't it?
Yeah, that sounds stressful.
So Chase Parsons, I remember this. He won that Oahe Derby. He was back at the ramp at like 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
Boat pulled up on the bank, keeping his. I don't remember if he weighed him earlier.
Yeah,
or
we
not.
weighed them all.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that's more common in the walleye world, but the bass world is different because I don't think I don't know if there's any tournaments that don't allow culling. If there is, I don't know.
I don't know of any more. Well, we can go back to Brandon Polinick.
Oh, that's true. You mentioned Palaniuk earlier. Yeah. This was a great story. He handled it like an absolute champion. But it was the Mississippi River event, which had 4 quadrants of the river. You had the Illinois, the Iowa, the Wisconsin, Minnesota piece of the Mississippi River. Okay, mm-hmm. You can't cull fish in Minnesota.
Really?
This has since been changed.
Since been changed on the bass side.
On the bass side. So he inadvertently had crossed into Minnesota waters and culled a fish and got his weight DQ'd that day. Mm-hmm. He would have won the tournament.
Really?
He was on the winning fish.
Hands down, he would have won it. Hands down, he would have won it.
He was on it. He was with the Arashi.
Mm-hmm.
The Arashi
that was right when
crankbait.
it came out. Yep.
Was he on was he fishing the shoreline or was he out offshore or something?
It was offshore. So that line, right?
It goes through the middle of the river.
And it doesn't necessarily represent the channel. And that's what it was originally built on. The border between Minnesota, Wisconsin was the channel. And of course that just changes.
Well, rules are rules.
But he handled it like a champion, but that's the point. Like the bass world doesn't deal with that, where the walleye world constantly at the various waters you go to, and a lot of lakes don't keep tournaments anyway.
No. I mean, so like this year we're going to La Crosse. Great body of water. I mean, it's Mississippi River, right? The place is on fire right now. I've never fished La Crosse pool, so it's going to be new to me.
Really?
So we got 7, 8, and 9. So in 7 and 8, one over 20 inches. But if you go down to 9, it has to be over 27. So you got to make that decision. If
that fish is in your box, it doesn't go back then when you get there.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you breaking the law if you have one down there that's under the slot?
You would be. 100%.
Oh, so you got to stay. You see the complications that come in here?
Yeah.
But
so
see that nobody
down,
writes about that. This is the whole part of the walleye tournament world that nobody's told that story, and I find it fascinating.
And then so after the debacles here a couple years ago, then last year they went to, we're just going to go with one angler's limit. So last year we fished multiple tournaments that we could only have 3 or 4 fish. That's just not a tournament anymore. I mean, we've lost it, people.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna flat say it. I think there's no reason why these tournament associations or tournament organizations couldn't go to the state and say, "Hey, we're holding a tournament here." Some states have you catch 4, you're done. Your partner or however many people in the boat, whoever catches that fish, that's their limit, and then they're done. Well, so it started like 3 years ago. We were on Winnebago, and they said, okay, each angler's only allowed 3 fish, but we're going to allow you to have 6. But once you get to your 3, you have to quit fishing. So
that angler had to reel in their 3.
There are 2 rods, and then the other angler was up to the other angler.
So it would be comparable to party hunting at that point.
Yeah, it's party fishing. That's absolutely what it's called. And so what ended up happening is if, let's just say I had my 2 fish in the box and the other angler only had 1, we had to set the hook on a fish and then hand the rod off, and it was whoever boated the fish that it counted for. So we were handing rods off and all that. It was just a complete mess. And so then this whole thing went down, and then last year we had all these goofy limits, and it just took the fun out of tournament fishing. Like, it was stressful enough, to only have 5 in the box, but
you got to have a standard. That's the thing, and I remember you were telling me about this, and we've rolled our eyes about this at length. Part of it is they want to go to different bodies of water. You know, Winnebago's walleye regulations different from Erie, different from Oahe. Okay, if it's a catch and release event, and this, you know, if anybody who knows me knows my opinion on the catch, weigh, release format, you know, live well, there's decades of proof that live wells can keep fish alive and proof that it can be done with walleyes. However, if you're going across the country to these different bodies of water, I think they have to be comparable to each other, right? I caught 5 walleyes at Oahe compared to 5 walleyes at Erie and everywhere in between. I wanted, like, that limit, that weight has to carry. Now, the 5 fish out of, you know, Kissimmee, the 5 bass at Kissimmee don't weigh the same as the 5 fish at Mille Lacs. Whatever, right? There are different weights, but at least the standard is the same. The standard at which you measure success is the same. I think for the longest time, it's been 5 fish. 5 bass is the standard judgment for a bass tournament. It should be for walleyes. And if it's a catch, weigh, release, I'm not going to go too far down the path of every fish counts, because the couple times Tommy and I fished those events, they're a lot of fun. I mean,
They're a blast.
they can be a lot of fun. So I think there's room for that.
There is.
And let's be smart about that, right? The reason why we go out fishing is to catch fish.
As many as we can.
As many as we can.
So there's a point where you have that perspective.
Absolutely.
But the standard in bass fishing is
Walleye
20
fishing.
pounds between 5 fish. And what's that number for walleyes? Would you say?
I'd say, you know, that depending on where you're at, if you're on the Missouri River or Chamberlain, South Dakota, it might be 14 pounds. But anywhere else, it could be, I mean,
30.
if you're on Green Bay, it could be 30, 40. Lake Erie, 30, 40 back in the heyday. Now even the population's coming back. It could be 30, 40. So, yeah, I mean, that changes.
It's a standard of measure.
Standard of measure. And we've gotten away from that, and that's a sad thing. That's really changed. And, I mean, I just think it's lack of care, lack of interest. Let's just put a tournament out there, and who shows up. And
there's also a value of, and this would go for every bass organization, every walleye organization. I think you need to have an invested party run it. And by what I mean is, it's hard for me to take the word of somebody that can't adjust a bait caster, can't skip under a dock, can't put a spread of lines out, can't understand depth charts, can't read a depth finder, can't run a boat, can't back a trailer in. And unfortunately, that is a lot of what we have going on, is the leadership runs the business from a business perspective only and hopes the anglers just fall in line. I think if you had an angler, now this is a person not competing. You can't have both. That is a conflict of interest. You got to have someone that was an angler that's running the organization.
And Thomas, let's be honest. I mean, we're sitting in the building that really has done so much for the sport of fishing, right? In-Fisherman. Whether they were producing a TV show, whether they were producing a tournament, there was a learning aspect in all of it. And they taught other anglers how to catch fish. Whether at the end of the day, they sat down with the angler that won the tournament, or did a little segment with that angler in the boat while he was fishing during the tournament. They showed what he was using. They showed how he was presenting the bait. They showed how he caught it.
Teaching somebody how to catch fish. And we have gotten away from that. And that's the sad thing. Now all we see is somebody up on stage, you know, walking across stage. Oh, Johnny Jones with 15 pounds, 5 ounces. Oh, Trevor, whoever, with 20 pounds, 2 ounces takes the lead. We don't care about that. Bottom line is we don't care about that. Let's get back to teaching anglers how to catch fish. With the room.
That's how you get following.
That's how you get a following. That's right. But there's something, and I don't disagree with you, but there's something special about a long road to success, about sacrifices made, about putting your money where your mouth is. You're a pro angler. You are the epitome of that in this room right now. You understand that there is a goal to be heralded, if it's just for one day, the best ever. That's what keeps us all going for that time. And, you know, I think that fishing offers that opportunity. But the great part about all this is you can do it to whatever extent you like, pursue your fulfillment, and move on. But if you want things to grow, if you want to learn new things, if you really embrace the suck of getting your teeth kicked in and going and learning a new technique or getting out like we have and teaching ourselves to adapt and learn and become proficient, a tournament is a great way to do it. And you build some great relationships because of it. Mark, really, the best relationships I have are from tournament fishing.
Absolutely. And getting back to teaching people, it's no different than Tommy's post. I seen it on Facebook. When I seen him today, hey, nice walleye. How, I knew how he caught it because he posted it, right? Mm-hmm. That's the cool thing.
And you get to enjoy it together. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that maybe I would. I love fishing and hunting enough that if I had nobody to share it with, maybe I'd still go. I think it's deep down. But let's be honest, if we had nobody to share it with, you're not getting to share those stories or share that sunset or watch turkey flop in the dust where there's a big cloud of dust because he won't stop flopping or I'm having to chase one down and tripping on a fence. I mean, that all comes down to that moment with other people. No, I would never have told anybody the story about the fence if you were there. It'd be good if it disappeared. But I think that's the tournament area. That's the social media. That's the just going fishing for fun. If we have that person, whomever it is, someone we love, we care deeply about, a good friend, your son, your daughter, grandparents,
Yep.
It doesn't mean as much if you don't have someone to share it with.
And I don't care. I mean, a 28-inch walleye, that's a giant for anybody.
I just scooped the cheeks out of that. Cheek and release, I say. I think there's a combination of, there's a little bit of competition in all of us, right? There's a combination of competition and memories. And I think if we find that happy medium to where we're sharing that with the right people, looking for opportunities to help someone get better, and I my hope for you, son, is that you embrace you can teach people. You've already done that. I want you to dig into that. And when you're working with a company, show them how you can teach somebody, right? And I'm not saying, hey, look what I taught so and so today. No, it's just be you, but find a nugget to give to everybody every opportunity you have.
I've been around Tommy a long time now, and I've seen him grow up, and that's the cool thing. Is Tommy was always a kid standing on the side of the boat whether I was sitting at your yard last year during a tournament or whatever. Mm-hmm. But he was trying to learn, right? Everybody's jonesing for learning. Like, I don't care if you're 5 or you're 55. Like, you still want to learn. If you don't go out on the water and learn something every day, you're doing it wrong.
And by God, appreciate the sunsets along the way.
Absolutely. But okay, yesterday I caught him and I had my clip bobber set at 4 foot. Well, darn, I wasn't catching nothing. So all of a sudden I was reeling in and I caught one and I set my bobber at 2 foot and I caught fish. Mm-hmm. Well, the water warmed up and those fish moved up and you caught them. You learned something that day. Don't get caught doing the same thing all the time. If they aren't biting, they're biting somewhere. They might still be in the same spot. You just got to change up something. Maybe it's pink. Maybe it's green.
And sometimes color doesn't matter. Sometimes speed doesn't matter. Sometimes the most important thing to do is just be in the right area where there are fish, and you could throw almost anything at them, and they'll eat it. And we've been in those scenarios.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about a lot of stuff here, and I really think we could drag this out for another hour real easy. But let's kind of bring it back to what we've just talked about in the tournament world and what needs to change. This is not to be critical of people that don't care, because they do care. Mm-hmm. We want to constructively criticize to improve so that the overall experience and the learning opportunities become better. Exactly. That's the big thing. We're not hating on anybody. It's how do you make the most out of this so that all parties invested benefit?
Well, and I think it does take the management team to do that, right? Bottom line is they're the ones that make the decision. Now, my career's been long, and I've sat on numerous advisory councils, whether it was PWT, whether it was FLW, and we had conversations with management. Like, I have a problem with somebody that sends out a survey and gets all the surveys back and doesn't think that the anglers talk, and all the anglers talk, and when we all sit around, all our surveys kind of matched and nothing happened, right? Well, then you're just being ignorant and don't care. Mm-hmm. But if you want to grow your business and get more anglers to be involved because they're going to get more benefit from it. More sponsors are going to want to be involved. They're going to get more media time, so on and so forth. It takes two people to make that work.
We want innovation in fish presentation, but we also want innovation in fishing presentation.
Correct.
It makes sense to develop new baits and new ways to get lures in front of fish, but if you want to get that fishing in front of new consumers, younger anglers, incoming generations, you've got to make it engaging. And when there's zero engagement, like that website, hot mess.
Oh, yeah.
There's zero ways to find that information, to engage, to plug in, to be a part of it.
YouTube channel gone. Like all those tournaments gone.
Maybe there's a reason behind that. But,
Maybe.
But what we don't know is there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of decisions that have to get made. But ultimately, if you want to be successful, you have to be in front of as many eyeballs as possible.
And now that you brought up, artificial only, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's getting harder and harder and harder to do around here in the States? Transportation of live bait.
And you're actually segueing into an interview I might do this week with our buddy Jason Barr, runs Tuts Bait and Tackle on Mille Lacs.
I know Jason really well.
Yep. And we talked last week about doing a podcast how this is another sitting on your hands complacency thing that Minnesota's doing. Is they're so, and this is a good thing to protect your fisheries, but there's a little bit of overprotection going on, and they won't allow. How hard has it been to find shiners, son?
Don't even get me started with that.
Well, but they work, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
If you can take one live bait with you during ice fishing, it's a golden.
It's always worth it. Like putting a shiner on a tip up, having it like 30 yards away from you. Most of the time, that flag will go off.
Yeah, 100%.
But you cannot import live bait into Minnesota right now.
No.
So that needs to change. That's a whole nother podcast we're going to get into, but that's an example of complacency.
Why artificial needs to be brought deeper into walleye fishing.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Because, that bait I created with Berkeley this year, the drip minnow and the drip swimmer, 100% what we did is took a spot tail shiner, molded it, casted it and molded it, and created a bait to look like spot tail shiner. Why? In the springtime in Minnesota, what's the number one bait you want on a jig is spot tail shiner, right? Well, they're hard to come by. And now even the regulations have gotten harder. You can't take a Mille Lacs strain of spot tail shiners or a Leech Lake strain or a Cass Lake strain or any of those strains and move them around because they don't want them intermingling. Well, okay, I had to create a bait because that time of year, that's what the fish want. And I'll tell you what, if you take plastics and snap jig them at 0.6, 0.8 miles an hour up in the shallows in the spring, you're going to catch the snot out of walleyes and you don't have to worry about live bait. I don't have to worry about going to the bait store, right? Because I've got a bait that created that. And that's really when I set out to do that bait. We started out with a straight tail, just like spot tail shiner, and that's what we created. And then I went back in the lab and we started messing around with tails. All of a sudden I'm like, oh,
it's super sexy.
This is super sexy.
It really is.
And I'm like, okay, now we've got an avenue where if the fish are negative, I can use this bait. If the fish are a little bit more aggressive and they want a little bit more, the water color's a little bit off and I want just a little bit of thump and a little bit of roll, I've got that bait. So that's what, the innovation. And just like you said, Thomas, just imagine what it'd be like if we had 6 or 8 companies trying to do that for the walleye industry.
To come out with the next hot thing for the walleye bait.
It'd be unbelievable.
Now, just to clarify, because I know that sometimes things get taken out of context, especially in the digital world. We are not 100% not advocating for making live bait illegal for anybody.
No.
It's in the tournament world where we think the equalizer should be everybody's using the same, or has the opportunity to use the same thing. Now, okay, I say that and everybody has the opportunity to bring live bait, but let's take the nature factor out of that because it's very productive. It's hard to beat a golden shiner on a tip up.
That's right.
Let's take that out of the competitive nature of the sport and let's get people on that playing field. So there is no question. Was it a crawler that made that fish eat, or was it the angler imparted action that made that fish eat?
But with that being said, the same thing comes into play with artificials. If we can create better baits to be more successful in the water, if you go to Canada, for example, where you can't get minnows or things like that.
You certainly can't take them across the border.
Can't take them across the border. So now you've got a bait that you feel comfortable going across. You're making a once-in-a-lifetime trip up to a lake in the middle of nowhere. These fish, number one, never see a bait, right? I mean, like, they don't see many baits in a lot of those locations. But now you've got a bait that you've got confidence catching fish in. And that's all we want to do is create baits that you have confidence catching fish, just to show you that you do not need live bait.
The convenience factor alone is worth having it.
And I don't know where you can go buy a chartreuse minnow. I mean, like, honestly, there's not many bait stores you can go in and buy a chartreuse minnow or a white minnow or purple minnow, or
they don't sell them.
No,
you got to buy the plastic.
Exactly. And a lot of times color makes a difference, and that'll change the way you fish.
So the last thing I want to just touch on here, and I'm going to flip it to Tommy here to give some of his perspective. I want you to look at your life and what you've done in the last couple of years, and then we'll bring it to you, Mark. But the time on the water thing, you know, there's two things that I believe in immensely, and it's not just from my time on the water, but it's the investment in getting the boat launched. It's dragging your ice house out when it's cold. It's what you had to do to come up with a pickup, to come up with a boat. It's two words. It's hard work.
Hard work.
So I'm going to ask you to explain to me what hard work is and how you've put that into your fishing. Define hard work to me.
Hard work. So,
can I have that in a sentence, please? Spell it.
Yeah. So what I think hard work is having a goal, like a big goal, a big life goal. Hard work is what you put into that goal, and what hard work is what it's that drive that makes you want to achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's one step at a time, right?
Yeah. Even if it's one step at a time. Like, that's that drive.
So put that into your fishing.
So I'll start with my truck. So I worked hard all summer.
An absurd amount of more hours than I worked.
Yeah. I worked a lot of hours and came up with a few $1,000s, and with the help of my amazing father over here.
He's smart. Mm-hmm.
I was able to purchase a reliable truck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still reliable to this day. I love that truck.
You take very good care of it.
I take very good care of it as well. And I make sure that I take good care of it. And I make sure nothing happens to it. I make sure that if there's a problem, I make sure that there's a way to fix it, or if there's a way to repair it.
There's attention to it right away before it festers.
Yeah, that's right.
And you wanted to have a truck to be able to haul a
boat, which I also worked
this summer.
A bunch of hours this summer to purchase that, with the help of my lovely father here, of course.
Well, he's already paying me back. Well,
I mean, he's going deep on my lovely father. The problem is, Tommy, that I know your dad, Thomas, and like, I may have a different thought process of your lovely father, but no, I'm just kidding.
No, but really, what you're getting at is you have this goal to be you're going to be a senior next year, so you've got 1 year left in our house, and then I'm kicking your ass out. But you do need to be proficient. You have to be self-motivated. Mm-hmm. Hard work only happens if you're self-motivated.
That's right.
And what I wanted you to learn, and what I want your sister to learn, is to be proficient, not rely on somebody necessarily. It's good to have, like, I rely on your mother. Mark relies on me. He needs to have, he has to pay me buddy fees. Mm-hmm. But really what it comes down to is the hard work you put in is setting you up so that when you're out on your own, you're an independent man, you have things that motivate you to get out of bed in the morning and go to work, and your passion is fishing and hunting. So you've worked for these things. You're paying them. You're still paying me for your boat. We'll get to there. He'll have his boat paid for, Mark, before summer, and I'll have not spent a dime on it.
That's awesome.
I didn't have that wherewithal at that age.
Well, and that's one thing I respect about Tommy, is that he's gone through, and his work ethic. I mean, he gets done working, and what does he do? He wants to go out fishing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I got to get myself a truck, and I got to get myself a boat. And, it was no different than my drive when I was a young kid. I mean, I went from, my mom dropping me off at a pond at 7 a.m. in the morning, picking me up at 4 during the summers, fishing in that pond all day long, to having a little F-14 with a 6-horse Johnson on the back to, having a Lumacraft to, get my first skeeter. So, I mean, yeah, you just kind of keep working at it.
And you got to prioritize.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Tommy's not out chasing girls all the time. I mean, he's out fishing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another topic for another day. There's definitely a smart way to go here right now at this point in life, and there's nothing wrong with the alternative. But the reality is, you definitely can commit a lot more time as a single man to fishing. But
And even during the fall, yeah. I talk to you all the time, right? Where's Tommy? Oh, he's out chasing a deer.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the difference. He goes to work and then he gets done and he goes and chases his passion.
Well,
so
this place, and there are pictures or paintings that illustrate this, and Al told me this not too long ago. If you haven't listened to that episode, I suggest you go back. It's a In-Fisherman Storyline special edition with Al Linder, and he talks a little bit about the early days. And, they didn't unhook their boats. The boats were on the back of their station wagons, and when they were done working, they went to the lake. And I don't think it was... I think it was an obsession to figure out how to catch fish to be able to teach people to become more proficient. And we've created this entire it's evolved into something, and Al admitted he never thought it would never imagined it would become as big as it is. And in those days, they were the first fishing innovators. Ray Scott, Jerry McInnes, so on and so forth. The Keith and Gary were walleye innovators. There are people
Gary Roach. I mean, like, you can go on and on.
There's
right?
so many names, and I'll never remember them all. But what they did is they put in hard work to help the incoming generations or the new anglers have a shorter path to success. And I think we all have worked collectively to make things easier, but none of it matters if you have forward-facing sonar, if you have a brand new 22-foot beautiful boat, the Skeeter, which, by the way, is the WXR 2060. Check that out.
Super excited. Yeah, super excited about that.
Yeah, that's another story for another day. Beautiful rig. But none of that matters if you don't understand the foundation or the basic components of catching fish, locating and catching fish. So it all starts with, I've wanted Tommy to go put in time by himself. I wanted him to not have the distraction of dad over his shoulder or a buddy telling jokes. There's time for that, and that's probably
that helps, right?
Super important.
That's where it starts.
Making your own decisions.
But that still's where it starts, right?
That's right.
Getting your kids out fishing, going with grandparents, going with the neighbor. I mean, I was always that kid, right? Just jonesing for anybody that would take me fishing. I'm all in. I'm going. But yes, once you get to that point where you can go out on your own, and I even challenge people that live on a lake or fish a lake, the same lake all the time, right? Go to a different lake.
Yeah.
I mean, just go challenge yourself. I mean, I don't care if they're biting on a weed line on Lake George, right? I don't care, right? Go find another lake and go try to build on that program, right? Maybe it's a different weed line, or maybe it's deeper, clearer lake, or I mean, there's a lot of things that go that, but when it's all said and done, you'll be a better angler at the end of the day.
So, Tommy, what advice would you give your friends if they wanted a truck and a boat and they love to fish?
Put in the work. That's it.
Earn it.
Yeah, earn it.
It's there. Your advice to the incoming generations?
Time on the water, like you just said with Tommy, earn it, and be your own angler. Be yourself. I mean, just because Joe Blow is catching them this way, it doesn't mean you need to catch them that way. Go be yourself. Go do your own thing. Go find your own fish. Challenge yourself to find your own fish. I don't care if you see somebody fishing in an area. Pay attention. Let's be honest. With our maps, you know what he's fishing. You can see it on your map, right? Go find more areas like that. If you think he's catching them, don't move in on him. Go find another area that's just like it and go catch them.
The number of times I've gone to other people's locations, whether they've given to me or I've seen where they're at and tried to move in, like, it just doesn't work.
I promise you, if you try to catch fish where somebody is already catching fish, you are not going to do it, because they already know how they're biting, they know where they're biting, and they know why they're biting. And a lot of people don't think of natural lakes having currents, but there is. Some fish position certain ways on structure, and me and you can be sitting 20 feet away, and they've just got the current right, and they're dragging their bait over that.
How many times is it a cast? Like, it is a specific cast that you have to make, or a specific trolling pass. And the only way you discover that is making the mistake.
Yep.
So I think along with both of those recommendations of advice for anybody that wants to own a truck and a boat or become good at fishing, you still have to acknowledge, hey, I missed, and you got to pick yourself back up and go again. And I think your personal fulfillment's important. We've talked a lot about personal prerogatives here, what it is that's important to you, but I don't. If you want to shoot a 1-year-old buck, if you want to catch a 2-pound walleye, I could give a rip. If you're happy with that, by God, go do it. And I think that's the biggest thing I would say over and over again is go do you. And if you find fulfillment in any level, then you need to pursue it that way, because really what it comes down to is those sunsets, they're a lot better enjoyed with somebody that fishes like you or has a perspective like you. Take a picture of the sunset, post the sunset, because to me that's a gift every single day that you get to see that sunset.
Absolutely. I'm just going to bring up one last story. We've talked about Tommy, but Taylor, you and Taylor came down to my house and went out and did some youth deer hunting, and she shot a buck. That was super cool to me. That's the fun things about our industry is watching kids, shoot their first buck or catch their biggest walleye or catch their biggest bass. That's the fun things. When I had my charter boat over in Wisconsin, I enjoyed watching people catch fish. It just puts joy on people. So, yeah, let people enjoy what they're doing. Don't bash them on social media. That fish could be the biggest bluegill or buck they've ever shot. It doesn't matter.
It's got to matter.
Absolutely.
Or it has to matter to that person.
That they posted it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The only reason why they posted it is because they're proud of it.
They want to celebrate it.
Absolutely. And remember that.
That's right. I'll tell you what, though, that hunt with Taylor was pretty special, but the one after it, man.
The spoon-fed one?
Oh, Lord.
We are going to get into that. Hey, from my son, Tommy, thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah, of course.
We'll do this again. My good friend, Mark Kortz.
Enjoyed it, buddy.
Hey, we solved a lot of world problems here today.
We did.
Go fishing.
Absolutely.
Take a picture of the sunset.
Absolutely. Or sunrise.
Or what? Sunrises are especially good.
Absolutely. If you get up that early.
Yeah. Well, we'll work on that. Hey, this has been another episode of In-Fisherman Storyline. This is the After Hours edition. We'll see you here on the next one. Thanks, everybody.